Hello, and welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. I am your host and beat reporter, and I have been your beat reporter covering the Jacksonville Jaguars for On SI every single day since August 2019, and we are continuing to march through yet another offseason together. As always, Jaguars on SI is your best stop for the best and most comprehensive Jaguars coverage you will find anywhere, whether locally or even nationally. We deliver you 24/7, 100% free, boots on the ground coverage of the Jaguars, and you can find all of it on social media such as Facebook and Twitter at Jaguars on SI. And you can also find us at www.si.com/NFL/Jaguars. Welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. Today we are going to talk about Ashton Jeanty. Again, I know it's kind of been a hot topic, especially in Jacksonville as of late. You're seeing more and more people connect them. Dan Brugler did it. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN said the Jaguars are a sleeper for him. You're continuing to see more and more people kind of connect those dots. What I want to talk about, though, in today's episode when it comes to Jeanty is I think a lot of Jaguars fans, and let me preface this by saying, I don't think the Jaguars should take Jeanty at 5. I'll understand their logic, obviously. There are some picks where I just straight up don't understand, the logic of. They've made quite a few of those, in the past. But when it comes just to the simple matter of comparing what Jeanty could be to some of the things the Jaguars have done in the past. And again, I personally would not take Jeanty at this selection. However, when you look at it from the prism of how some fans are comparing it to other picks, I think that we've all seen it compared to the last time the Jaguars spent a high pick on a running back, which obviously was Leonard Fournette in 2017. 4th overall pick. As things stand today is, I believe, 8th among the 2017 class in career rushing yards. And I think a lot of fans are worried that if the Jaguars select Jeanty, it will go the way of the Fournette pick, which obviously did not work out very well. Only spent 3 seasons in Jacksonville. They released him, of course, before the 2020 season. James Robinson took over the role from him. Hit 1,000 yards his rookie year, but under 4 yards per carry. Next year dealt with some injuries. 2019, it's probably a little bit more productive, but he found greater, I guess you could say, personal success later on, obviously, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady. Ashton Jeanty, to me, I get the logic of fans saying the Jaguars have seen firsthand, and obviously not this regime, but this organization has seen firsthand what taking your running back that early can do if you don't hit. And I can say with certainty that wasn't a pick that, from the top down, the organization wanted to make in 2017. Tom Coughlin wanted to make the Leonard Fournette pick. And a lot of respect for Tom. I think he did a lot to help the Jaguars when he came back, but that pick was a mistake. It was a mistake then, and it's a mistake now. And it was a mistake beyond the simple fact that the Jaguars were taking a running back early. It was much more than that. It was the running back that they were taking. And Christian McCaffrey went a couple picks later. Christian McCaffrey obviously wouldn't be probably some of the numbers that he hit if he had gone to the Jaguars, but put him on potential playoff team 2017. But the Jaguars wanted to be a tough, physical team. They took the guy who a lot of people were calling, the tough, bruising, workhouse running back of the draft class, etc. I don't think Jeanty is comparable to Fournette as a prospect. I had a lot of issues evaluating Fournette, really as a prospect. I think if he came out today, that a lot more of the draft community would have a different take on him than they did then. Because back then, there were still plenty of people who, spoke very highly of him as a prospect. But just look at some of his, pros and cons. Yeah, he was a very powerful runner, physical, tough nose. They relied on him to kind of set a tone, good long speed to rip off explosive runs, etc. However, he needed the blocking in front of him to make something. He could not make something out of nothing. He needed a little bit of a runway. He didn't have the best vision. He wasn't an impact in the passing game. Even when he got better as a receiver in Jacksonville, he was never really a big plus in the passing game. And add all this together, and, they got an inefficient runner who at times could deliver punishing blows, but overall, not the kind of player you're looking at taking in the top 5. I don't think Jeanty is Fournette as a prospect. I think Jeanty is several tiers above Fournette, just looking back at Fournette as a prospect. And this isn't hindsight. Go back and watch his LSU games. All of the red flags were there for a team taking him, early. Yeah, there's stuff he can provide, obviously, to an NFL team, but it's all about value when it comes to the draft. And the Jaguars were never going to get their value back on the Fournette pick. But I don't think you can compare Jeanty to him for several reasons. I think Jeanty, for one, strictly as an athlete, is a much different player. I think he has more explosion. I think he has better agility. I think he is better in space. I think he's better at, Fournette was really good at getting yards after contact. I think Jeanty, which might be more important at running back, is better at avoiding contact, using stiff arms, using moves, using his eyes to really set up angles and, defeat the way that defenders are attempting to pursue him. I think overall, Jeanty, there's just more feel for him as a runner, whereas, with Fournette, it felt like he just wanted to go downhill at 100 miles per hour and see what happens. I think other than that, I think Jeanty also offers you a lot more versatility. In the passing game, I think Jeanty is really underrated. He obviously can get good yards at the contact, but I see a guy with good hands. He has a very good feel for screens, when to leak out, how to follow his blocks, really good spatial awareness overall. And I just think when you look at Jeanty's skill set, it's so much different than Fournette's was coming out that I don't think it's fair to compare the two. Now, is it similar context in terms of new regime just wants to run the ball, set in a new physical aggressive tone, and they're taking a running back to potentially, be the building block of that new vision? Yeah, there could be some similarities in the narrative, but I just think that when you're looking at them as players, that Jeanty and Fournette are so different that I don't think it deserves any comparisons. I think if the Jaguars take Jeanty at 5, I will obviously, have some criticisms of it, but I don't think I will criticize it like, my college self did back in 2017. I remember exactly where I was when the Jags took him. I was, working at the time as a student in Orlando, went to like a Buffalo Wild Wings after a shift to watch the draft. And I remember them all telling me, Fournette's a beast. Jaguars got a great pick. And at the time, I was like, let's see, fellas, I wouldn't have as negative a reaction to Jeanty just because I think he's a higher level prospect. I think the issue with Fournette was twofold. It was obviously that they took a running back, but they took the wrong running back. There were several other running backs in that class who have outproduced, Fournette. That they took the right one, it still wouldn't have looked good, but say they take McCaffrey instead of Fournette, and that pick looks a lot different. So I do think you have a better chance of Jeanty being the right player with the pick. I don't think that changes anything in terms of how you should evaluate the value, and evaluate the idea of taking a running back that high. I think I'd say there's a chance with every player and every prospect that they might not be the top prospect from their position, etc. I still think there's that possibility just because it's such a stacked running back class. But I would, if I had to, guess, which a lot of draft evaluation is, then yeah, I think Jeanty will be the top back from this class. So, while again, I would have reservations if I was the Jaguars when it came to taking a running back in the top 5, it wouldn't have anything to do with Fournette's failure and how much that pick might have set the Jaguars back, way back when. They passed on some really good players, at number 4. I think they probably would have taken Jamal Adams instead if they didn't take Fournette. Yeah, still not ideal, but better than what the pick would have been. So I don't think Jeanty would be a great pick. But for those who want to compare it to 2017, I think that is also a step too far. Thank you guys for listening to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. Back next time.